Hey everyone, Alex here again with another image review session. Thanks for everyone who watched the last one and let me know they enjoyed it or thought it was valuable. Tonight it's another dive into the recent pictures. In this case, so it's going to bump all the way through. Let me just, there we go. Jump into the recent pictures. This is a folder which is a mixture of shots from couple of destinations. There's some Indonesia photos from Komodo. There's one from Allure at the beginning. There's a few Lembeh shots, and there's a Raja Ampat shot there, and some Red Sea shots. And these are just kind of a mixture of commensal creatures, so creatures living together symbiotically. There's mostly they're either animals living on seapens or animals on anemones, and they're particularly mainly anemonefish actually on anemones. And this is just what's in this folder here. As always, you can see if you watch this full screen on a reasonably large monitor, you should be able to read all the camera settings on the right hand side. But the majority of these, if not all of them, are shot with the Sony A1, and because there's a lot of macro here, a lot with a 90mm lens. A bit of variation with the wide angles, and I'll cover that as we get to those wide angles, but most of these are with the Sony 90mm. Quite a lot of these are with SMC or MFO lenses. Some are with the 50mm actually as well. I think some of these bigger shots are with the 50mm macro lens as well. And I think I had the curve port on for that dive to get the best edge-to-edge image quality. Anyway, we'll run through those as we get to them. So kicking off, there's a Brooks urchin shrimp in a fire urchin shot with a shallow depth of field, this picture here. Really because fire urchins have got lovely colours to them, but there's a lot of busyness going on. And shallow depth of field is a nice way to blur out all that busyness into the component colours, and I think gives you a better background. I'd always like a little bit more depth of field on the subject, but ultimately you can't have loads of depth of field on the subject and then no depth of field on the background in a single straight shot. So in this case here, as long as the focus is good on the eye, and it is, we zoom it on in, probably zoom a bit further than that. Let me just try to zoom one more. There we go. You can see the eye is nice and sharp. And then we've got the whole picture out there. Most of the rest of these are on seapens. So this is a four-lobed porcelain crab on this beautiful purple seapen. And this was diving in the muck site in Horseshoe Bay in Nusa Coda. It was really great at night for all these really beautiful, pristine looking seapens, and they were covered in stuff, so you could really just choose what background you wanted, what foreground you wanted, and you can see that not only is there the main porcelain crab in here, but if we scroll across you can see there's another one there. They were just everywhere on these pens, and big beautiful pens packed with critters. Really nice for photographic opportunities, lots of different colours. Really enjoyable dive, just shooting these in different angles, different compositions, trying to make different styles of pictures with the different sea pens and the different critters on them. This is a very pretty decorator crab covered in little stinging hydroids, looking fantastic on that purple background. Here playing around with some backlighting just to liven things up a little bit, but again you can see it just loaded up with these fantastic porcelain crabs. They're all over the sea pen, which is really cool. It's fun to play with scale in these shots too. Obviously the repeating patterns of the sea pens are very pleasing to the eye, and that's shot with a 50mm lens rather than the 90mm. And so that's always a major theme photographically for me of the pictures, is playing with those repeated layers. And then you're always having fun with where the shrimp or where the crab or whatever it is, it might be a goby, interrupts those layers. And you can see here this tiny little cleaner shrimp just clinging on there in amongst all the layers, just providing a focal point in the composition. And that's the way I enjoy to shoot these, is lots of repeated patterns, and then the fun of the discovery of a cool little creature hidden away in there. Let me just zoom in on him properly. Ooh, sorry, I'm trying to get my zoom right. There he is, peeking out from the side there with his mouth open. That little sea pen goby. This one with the shrimp on, but lovely purple colour. This was a very attractive red sea pen with white polyp tips at the edges, and was loaded with, not the best shape actually for a photo, being so long and thin, shooting this size of picture, but loaded with porcelain crabs. So you can see 3 in this picture. If I scroll my way up the screen, so a lot of layers, and then there's another one, and then scroll up some more, and there's probably another one at the top here. There's the final one coming into frame now. So a very cool shot. I think this would probably be more fun to show, almost like animated with a panning shot, almost like it was a video. You just pan your way up through all these layers between the different crabs. And then just going in and filling the frame a little bit more. It's the same sea pen actually, same crab, I think. I think that's the one at the top actually of those 3, and you can see there he is poking out. Really lovely details and patterns on the sea pen. Nice colours, nice polyps. So they're really great subjects. Not so much of a dependent relationship, but here we've got a ghost goby perched on this lovely blue cluster of sea squirts, or ascidians, or on the seabed. There's actually these wrinkly bits at the bottom. I don't know if the other shot shows them a bit better. These are actually flatworms. So there were these 2 white flatworms on the bottom, and then actually you've also got the eggs of the goby down the bottom here, which it had laid on the stalk of this stalked tunicate, this stalked sea squirt. So that's quite interesting. Now we've finished with Komodo. There, that's the last of the Komodo shot. So I'll just scroll through a few of those in case you were desperate to see camera settings. You can pause this video and read those off. Now we're moving to Lembeh. Still taken in 2024, but just a Lembeh trip earlier in the year. This one I really like the background of this. This is just a ghost goby on a starfish, and you can see all the gills of the starfish here. Really cool detail in the gill patterns. But I just like this with this central spot of the starfish here, and you can see the sort of the I like how the goby sits in this pattern really, and I like the fact that you can see the details of the gills and everything on the starfish too. This is a very, very pretty shrimp. I can't remember what this one's called, but this is on a bubble coral. And this is not such a common shrimp to see on the bubble corals. You normally sort of see the Via philippinensis shrimps on there. This is another shrimp that you get on the bubble corals, but this one's really pretty with these speckledy outline around its whole body. Really handsome shrimp. Lovely detail on it. If I zoom in, you can see all that fantastic detail on the shrimp. And just placed him off centre there, really just to make the composition a little bit more interesting and more dynamic in the frame. Next up, we're diving into some anemone fish, I think, for a bit. So this is a spine cheek anemone fish. Are these all in Lembeh? Let me just check. Lembeh. Yeah, so all Lembeh shots. Spine cheek anemone here. I think the spine cheek anemone fish, they're always in the bulb tip anemones, bulb tentacle anemones. So they always have attractive anemones, and it's just a case of trying to find a nice fish. Some are super aggressive, some are super dark. So you're just looking for a really pretty one. Usually the smaller of the pair, which is the male, is usually a little bit prettier, usually a bit redder, a little bit cuter. So you often focus attention on those. This is a pair of Clark's anemone fish in this sort of very dark anemone with quite fluorescent tips. That would look quite nice in the photo. I like the colour mix of this picture. It's like oranges and browns. It's kind of quite a cool colour mix and quite a limited colour mix in the frame. And here's another spine cheek anemone fish. There you can see that. These were just shot with a 90mm. I don't think there's anything unusual. Oh no, that says 50mm. Oh, that surprises me. He must have shot this with a 50mm, and it managed to focus on the anemone fish, so it must have not been moving very much. This final one is a clownfish, but it's got an unusual colour pattern. This one, its bar in the centre of its body doesn't join up. It's sort of got a top and a bottom bar, rather than a full bar around the whole body. I don't know whether this was because it was young and it was developing the bar, or whether it was just a natural variation in the population. But it was on a nice purple anemone, so it was nice to photograph. Then we've got some of these, I call these tomato clowns, tomato anemone fish. And this one here is in Raja Rampat. I think this one is shot with the FCP actually. Oh no, it's with a 90mm. So shot on this lovely, just nice fluorescent orangey anemone. Gives a great sort of solid colour background. I've used a relatively narrow depth of field to blur out some of the detail in this bulb-tipped anemone, but while keeping, obviously, focusing on the eye and the face of this rather handsome clownfish, an anemone fish, with this lovely fire coral colour that they have, the tomato clowns. And then this is the same species, but this one's in Lembeh. And this is one of the big colonies. You get colonies of them in Lembeh. You don't see these very much. They're often very shallow, both in Raja and in Lembeh. And it's actually only when you sort of dive up almost to depths that you can't scuba dive in, they're so shallow, that you tend to run into a lot of these species. This one, as you've probably spotted while I was talking about how shallow it had to be to take the picture, was swimming along with an anemone tentacle sticking out of its mouth. I've never seen a clownfish do this before. I have no idea what it was up to. Maybe I should post this one on social media and see if anyone's got any ideas what it was doing. But it was swimming around with this anemone tentacle in its mouth. Not quite sure what it was doing. But I have to say, when you see these tomato anemone fish in these very dense colonies, they do tend to exhibit some quite interesting behaviours. You get quite a lot of fighting in some of the colonies, and if you watch some of these videos back, I have shown pictures of ones that are really bedraggled from too much fighting between them when you get these big colonies. What this one was doing, who knows? But yeah, interesting to see nonetheless. Some red sea anemone fish now. You can see here with the magnificent sea anemones here rather than the bulb-tip anemones. Lovely skirt colours on the anemones. This is at a dive site called Aruk or St John's Wood. And you can see there's quite a lot of bleached coral in the background, actually. If I zoom in, you can see the white blobs on the reef behind from the bleached coral. This anemone wasn't bleached, but on the same dive site, this photo is taken on the same dive site by shallowing up. And up in the shallows, the anemones were much more bleached. And you can see this anemone is really bleached white. And you've got the red colour of the skirt coming through. But most of the rest of the anemone is just white. And there's a few shots here. Just playing around, either putting a little bit more shadow in with the lighting or trying to sort of just light it really evenly. The bit more shadow kind of brings out the individual tentacles, but I don't know if it makes the bleaching so obvious. Anyway. This is on that same Red Sea trip, and this is a site that, I can't remember the Arabic name for it, but we call it Magic Carpet, because it's a relatively flat, deeper site. It doesn't come up that shallow to the surface, but it's a very beautiful site, very photogenic, on the outside of St John's. It's an outer reef on St John's. I think it's on St John's. Yeah, it is. And really nice dive site there. Quite often get oceanics and things turning up there, so it makes for a really good site. This site had nice, magnificent sea anemones, but they weren't that red. They were very much orange. And I remember on the trip, everyone said they looked like pumpkins because it was around Halloween time, and they were really, really orangey in colour. Our final anemone fish shot, I think, is another Red Sea shot. This one for a different dive site. This one's up in Fury Shoal. And this is a more typical red skirted version of the magnificent sea anemone with a red sea anemone fish poked in. I think this would have made a great macro shot. I can't get the zoom right easily here. But yeah, a macro shot with just the red and this little, puff of tentacles and then the face of the anemone fish shot from a bit more in front, I think would have been a great macro shot. It was okay as a wide angle shot. I had the FCP on, I had a bit of flexibility. But yeah, I wish I'd had a sort of a full-on macro lens for this dive. It would have been really cool. This one here is more balled-up anemones. This is at Anemone City, which is a dive site in the Ras Mohammed National Park. And on the workshops that I run there in the November time, we specifically dive this site on that final dive of the day because as the sun gets low, and you can see the low sun at the top of the picture, so the anemones ball up. Not at sunset, they tend to ball up in the late afternoon. They often reopen again after balling up, but I think it's their way of basically being open, feeding all day. When the sun dies, it's a chance for them just to ball up. It obviously helps them. I don't know whether it helps them digest or get the food out of the tentacles into the main body. I'm not quite sure why they ball up, but they definitely ball up at this time of day after having the sun out, and it's a great chance to get the colour the anemones into the photos. This photo is obviously dominated by another fish, which is this line jaw wrasse cruising across the top here. He was a predator, and he was trying to eat the little damselfish that are hanging around the back here. The anemone city in the Red Sea, in Egypt, that this dive site is very typical to have lots and lots of 3-spot or domino damselfish hanging around the anemones. And this guy was busy trying to catch them. And I think he was making use of the fact that the anemones are balled up at this time of day to be hunting those damselfish, which I thought was really interesting to see. And this is shot with the Nikonos 15mm lens, so the mechanical lens, whereas this is FCP. This one is that's Nikonos 13mm, so that's the autofocus Nikonos lens. This is the FCP, and this is the Nikonos 15mm mechanical lens, which I do enjoy shooting. I do don't use it very much, but I always enjoy it when I use it. And our final commensal for this image, I thought that was the last one, but there's one more, is not a relationship that's in any way a permanent one. I think this is a photo. The background of this picture is a sort of endemic Red Sea nudibranch. It's a species of Halgerda. There's some debate now actually about what the actual species name is. I've heard in more recent times it's been reclassified from what it used to be, so I've put it down as Halgerda species in the caption. The squat lobster crawling on it, I think, doesn't normally go on the nudibranch. I think either the nudibranch crawled over where it lives and it climbed up on top of the nudibranch while it passed, or it was travelling across the seabed and just the nudibranch for it was another piece of terrain. So while shooting the nudibranch, I spotted this very, very tiny squat lobster on it and thought it was a really nice chance to shoot the squat lobster in a really unusual habitat, and that unusual habitat being the background being the weird patterns of this nudibranch. So yeah, that was what that photo is all about. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that little selection of commensal creatures. As I said, mostly shot with a 90mm on the Sony. I think they're all shot on the Sony A1 from this year. Or from 2024, and relatively recently processed by me. So I'll be back again soon with another episode. Thanks for watching.